Hello everyone, and today we're looking at one of the most insane American speed machines ever created. A car that wasn't built for comfort, elegance, or daily driving, but for one single purpose: destroying endurance speed records across the endless white emptiness of Bonneville Salt Flats. This is the Duesenberg Model SJ Mormon Meteor from 1935, and honestly, this thing feels less like an automobile and more like a giant supercharged engine wrapped in yellow bodywork. The first thing that immediately grabs your attention is the shape of the car. The body is stretched low to the ground, the hood looks impossibly long, and the exposed wheels make it resemble some kind of mechanical torpedo designed to attack the horizon itself. Even standing still, the Mormon Meteor somehow looks fast. And the craziest part is that this machine appeared during the Great Depression, an era when most Americans were worried about survival, unemployment, and economic collapse. Yet somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, a group of engineers and racers decided to build one of the fastest endurance cars the world had ever seen. And honestly, that's part of what makes the Mormon Meteor so fascinating. It wasn't created by cautious people trying to play safe. It was built by individuals obsessed with pushing limits, even if those limits looked completely unreasonable. The story begins with legendary American driver Ab Jenkins, one of the greatest endurance racers in automotive history. Unlike many racing drivers who focused on short sprint races or glamorous European circuits, Jenkins was obsessed with endurance speed records. He wanted to know how fast a car could travel, not just for a few seconds, but for entire hours and even entire days without mechanical failure. And honestly, that required a completely different kind of courage. Going fast for a lap is one thing. Holding a machine near maximum speed across an endless salt desert while the engine screams at full power for hour after hour is something else entirely. To accomplish this, Jenkins partnered with Duesenberg, already one of the most prestigious and technologically advanced car manufacturers in the world. In the 1930s, Duesenberg automobiles represented the absolute peak of American engineering. Celebrities, businessmen, movie stars, and wealthy collectors all wanted them because they combined luxury with incredible performance. Their slogan, "It's a Ducey," became famous because the cars genuinely felt extraordinary compared to ordinary automobiles of the era. The Mormon Meteor started with the mighty Duesenberg Model SJ, already one of the fastest production cars in existence. Under the hood sat a gigantic 420 cubic inch supercharged inline-eight engine. And honestly, the numbers still sound ridiculous even today. The massive straight-eight produced approximately 400 horsepower, an almost unbelievable figure in 1935. To understand how insane that was, many regular American cars of the era struggled to produce even 70 horsepower. The Mormon Meteor had more than 5 times that amount. And this wasn't some fragile race engine designed only for a few minutes of glory. The Duesenberg engine was engineered to survive enormous punishment for long periods of time. It used dual overhead camshafts, 4 valves per cylinder, advanced lubrication systems, and extremely sophisticated engineering for its time. In many ways, the engine was closer to aircraft technology than ordinary automotive engineering. Period descriptions talk about the deep roar of the massive inline-eight mixed with the screaming sound of the centrifugal supercharger. Imagine standing alone on Bonneville Salt Flats in the 1930s, while this thing approaches from miles away across the white desert. It probably sounded less like a car and more like a low-flying fighter aircraft racing across the ground. The body of the Mormon Meteor was heavily modified specifically for high-speed endurance runs. Unlike luxurious production, Duesenberg's covered in chrome and elegant coachwork, this machine received lightweight, streamlined body panels designed to reduce aerodynamic drag. The pointed nose, low roofline, cycle-style fenders, and tapered rear section all existed for one reason: speed. And honestly, even nearly 90 years later, the design still looks incredible. There's something very pure about the shape. It doesn't rely on oversized wings, giant spoilers, or aggressive modern styling tricks. Every line feels functional. Every curve feels intentional. The car almost resembles an aircraft fuselage mounted on wheels. At the same time, though, it still carries classic Duesenberg elegance. Many race cars from the 1930s looked crude or improvised. The Mormon Meteor somehow looked refined and brutal at the same time. Then came the records. In 1935, Jenkins brought the Mormon Meteor to the legendary Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah, one of the greatest natural speed locations on Earth. Bonneville was enormous, flat, and seemingly endless, the perfect place for someone insane enough to attempt endurance speed records at full throttle. And what happened there shocked the automotive world. The Mormon Meteor became famous for breaking multiple endurance records, including an incredible 24-hour speed record, averaging more than 135 miles per hour for an entire day. Think about how unbelievable that really is. This happened in 1935. No traction control. No electronic stability systems. No computerized engine management. No advanced tire compounds. Just raw engineering, mechanical reliability, and a driver brave enough to keep pushing forward for 24 straight hours. Modern audiences sometimes underestimate how dangerous these achievements really were. Today, driving 135 miles per hour in a modern supercar feels dramatic but manageable because modern vehicles are filled with electronic systems constantly helping the driver. In the 1930s, speeds like that felt genuinely terrifying. Tire technology was primitive. Braking systems were basic compared to modern standards. Aerodynamics was still poorly understood. If something failed at a high speed, the consequences could be catastrophic. And yet Ab Jenkins kept pushing the car harder. That's what makes the Mormon Meteor legendary. It wasn't simply fast, it survived speed. But the story became even crazier a few years later with the creation of the Mormon Meteor III. By 1937, Jenkins wanted even more speed and endurance capability, so a completely new evolution of the car was developed around a gigantic Curtiss Conqueror aircraft engine. And honestly, once aviation engines enter the conversation, you already know the project has reached another level of insanity. The Mormon Meteor III was developed with help from legendary engineer Duesenberg and, surprisingly, Jenkins' own son, Ab Jenkins, who was sent to work alongside Duesenberg when he was only 17 years old. Imagine being 17 and instead of learning to fix normal cars, you're helping engineer one of the fastest endurance machines on Earth. That alone sounds like the beginning of a Hollywood movie. What makes the Mormon Meteor III especially fascinating is how advanced and experimental it became. The enormous aircraft engine dramatically changed the balance of the vehicle, forcing engineers to rethink the entire chassis layout. One particularly unusual solution involved offsetting the body several inches on the frame to improve turning stability on the long, high-speed circuits at Bonneville. It sounds strange today, but at extreme speeds, small adjustments could completely transform how stable the car felt over hundreds of miles. And honestly, that level of engineering obsession is part of what makes these old speed machines so captivating. They weren't just building cars, they were inventing solutions in real time while chasing impossible goals. The Curtiss Conqueror engine itself was absolutely monstrous. Originally designed for aircraft, it transformed the Mormon Meteor III into something closer to a land-based airplane than a conventional automobile. The machine became faster, more powerful, and even more intimidating than before. By 1939, Jenkins used the car to break every recognized 12-hour endurance speed record, reaching speeds of around 171 miles per hour. And remember, this happened before World War II. But perhaps the most incredible achievement came in 1940, when the Mormon Meteor III established a staggering 24-hour average speed of over 161 miles per hour. Think about that for a moment. Holding that kind of speed continuously for an entire day in a pre-war machine with aircraft engine power sounds almost impossible even now. And what makes the achievement even more impressive is that this endurance record stood unbeaten for 50 years, finally falling only in 1990. That alone tells you how extraordinary the Mormon Meteor really was. And honestly, this is why the car remains legendary today. Not because it was flashy, not because it was luxurious, but because it represented a level of mechanical bravery and determination that feels almost unimaginable now. No computers controlling the engine, no advanced telemetry, no electronic driver aids. Just a man, a giant engine, endless white salt, and the belief that faster was always possible. Today, surviving versions of the Duesenberg Model SJ Mormon Meteor remain among the most celebrated American speed machines ever created. The later restoration work carried out by Ab Jenkins himself became deeply important historically because he understood the machine better than almost anyone alive. Having worked on the car as a teenager alongside Duesenberg, he possessed first-hand knowledge that allowed many of the original components and engineering details to be recreated decades later. And honestly, that makes the Mormon Meteor feel even more alive somehow. It wasn't just preserved by museums. It was preserved by the people who actually lived its history. And maybe that's why the Mormon Meteor still feels so special today. Because deep down, this machine represents an era when speed records weren't just about publicity or technology. They were about courage, endurance, engineering obsession, and the willingness to attempt something so absurd that most people would call it impossible before you even started. And honestly, that's what makes automotive history unforgettable. And if you enjoy discovering incredible machines like this, vehicles that combine engineering brilliance, danger, history, and pure insanity, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because there are many more unbelievable automotive stories waiting ahead.